Davis Smith founded and built Brazil's leading e-commerce retailer, Brazil.com.br, recognized by Forbes as one of Brazil's top 5 startups. In this endeavor, he raised $23 million in venture capital. And in the third month of operation, the site reached more than 1 million visitors per month and shipped 1,000 orders in a single day, growing from a small team to over 100, sounds like maybe 140, 180 employees. In July 2012, he expanded into the child-focused flash sales site, Ginda.com.br, for mothers with children and infants. His first venture, pooltables.com, grew to become the largest pool table retailer in the U.S., with retail outlets in 4 states, starting with about $20,000 scraped together from family and friends. According to a New York Times DealBook feature, quote, the venture taught them business basics such as how to coordinate with vendors in China and how to run an e-commerce site, and was profitable in their first year, unquote. Smith has previously been an entrepreneur in residence with Alta Ventures Mexico, an early-stage venture capital firm in Monterrey, Mexico, and a project manager with Del Sol LC, directing the operation of 20 the opening of 20 retail stores. We're very proud that he's received his Bachelor of Arts in International Studies with a minors in Management and Latin American Studies and Global Management Certificate from BYU and from the Kennedy Center. He also received an MA in International Studies from the Lauder Institute of Management and International Studies, as well as an MBA from the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. Today, Davis is passing through Utah, and so a few months ago when we were able to reconnect, we talked about the interest we have in having our alumni who have been out working in the world of business to talk to you. In particular, we know that over 55% of our Kennedy Center graduates, of our majors, are working in business. Regularly, I run into Kennedy Center alumni who say to me, well, I'm not a diplomat, and I'm not doing, I'm not an international person of mystery. As if there was something wrong with that, when the reality is that, like our namesake David M. Kennedy, most of our students will be involved in business, and many will be involved in international business. So we're very grateful for the time that Mr. Smith has taken to come, and we'd like to turn the time over to Davis Smith on how to build your career in global business.
Okay, I just want to make sure the mic's working. Working? All right. First of all, I want to keep this fairly casual. I think I've met, did I meet a few? I think I recognize a couple faces from yesterday. Did I meet anyone here? I know you were there yesterday. Okay, good. So it just gives me an idea of, I spoke at the Marriott School yesterday. So, and this is going to be actually quite different from what I talked about yesterday. I'm going to tell a little bit about my story, but a lot of this is just, I want to just have basically a conversation with you guys and help you try to figure out what it is that you want to do with your lives once you graduate. So just to give you an idea, I want to understand who's here, what you guys are studying, and so maybe it's a small enough group, I think we can just run through really quick and you can just tell me what your major is, and maybe if you have a minor, what your minor is. Or if you're not a student, maybe just mention what you do here at the Kennedy Center, or how you're involved. That'd be great. Maybe we can start here.
Yeah, I'm Taylor Lund, studying Portuguese is my major, business is my minor, and I'm getting a global management certificate as well.
Great. Okay. Great. Move over here.
I'm Beth Page. I'm an Asian Studies major and teaching English to students of other languages as a minor.
Great. Okay.
I'm Erica Renslett, and I'm a communication disorders major and a business minor.
Great.
Ryan Smith, a pre-management major.
Cool.
Chelsea Smith, political science major with an advertising design.
Okay.
Logan Bird, a Latin American Studies major with a business minor and my global management certificate.
Great.
Michael Curry, Latin American Studies major, manager minor, global management certificate.
Great. Okay.
I'm Mike Frank. I'm MBA controller at the Kennedy Center.
Great. Let's maybe jump to this next row over here. Yeah, sorry.
Caroline Black, and I'm an international relations major with a Chinese minor.
Okay.
Eric Noel, a communications major, journalism and business, and a political science minor.
Okay.
I'm Dallin Shaner. I'm a business
Hassan, international relations major.
Great.
Brand Pino, I am a business major.
Okay.
David Godoy, I'm doing international relations.
Okay.
Veronica, I'm studying communications.
Communications. Okay.
Mariana Fella, I'm studying international relations.
Okay.
Logan Dahl, international relations.
Okay.
Steven Paviano, economics and political science and Chinese.
Okay.
Scott Herrick, international relations and development management.
Okay.
Kyle Bishop, Chinese, minoring in business.
Okay.
David Bull, Middle Eastern Studies, Arabic major.
Great.
Paul Screenson, pre-accounting major.
Okay.
Derek Johansson, economics major, business physics, minors and Russians.
Great.
Matt Mullen, we know Steven as well. He's a really smart guy. Econ major, just applying for the strategy minor and possibly a statistics minor as well.
Okay. Great.
David Rami, Middle East Studies, Arabic major, Hebrew.
Okay.
Brad Stewart, manufacturing engineering major, Spanish minor.
Great. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. That helps me understand kind of your background. So, who here is a senior? Junior? Sophomore? Freshman? Okay. Okay. So, how many of you have done internships already? About half of you, maybe. That's good. Okay. So, I think I'm going to kind of jump into this presentation, but I want to continue to have it kind of as a conversation. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I chose to do. Who here is interested in potentially having a business career? Okay. And those that didn't raise their hand, considering business maybe, or just not really sure? Okay. All right. So when I was a student here, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do either. Actually, I thought I might want to become a lawyer. And I think I would have been a pretty lousy lawyer, so I'm glad I didn't do that. But I figured out I wasn't going to be a lawyer when I was doing an internship. So I think internships are incredibly important in helping you kind of learn about yourself and who you are. So just to jump into a little bit, you guys heard a little bit about my background. I'm going to kind of start in the most recent stuff, and then I'm going to kind of go back a little bit further. But right now I'm working as I founded a company called baby.com.br. I graduated from the Wharton School with an MBA a year ago, so 2011. And I started this business last year, and we launched the business about 12 months ago. So the growth has been pretty incredible. We've raised $23 million from some top VCs, and we have 180 employees. We have over 1 million moms who use our services, over 1 million Facebook fans on our Facebook page. So this is our little Facebook page, 1 million. It was a big celebration at the office that day. So kind of going back, like how did I get into this career where I'm living in Brazil, have a really fun international business. And I'm going to start with, before I even get to this little piece of the story, I'm going to tell you what I did as a student. So I decided to study international studies. It took me a while to decide what I wanted to study. I thought maybe I should do business, but decided to do international studies. Thought, like I told you before, thought maybe I would become an attorney. And I decided I wanted to do some international internships. So I found an internship through the Kennedy Center working in Peru. And it was one of the employment services internships, which this was the first year they had one. So I was like in the first group to go out. And my wife and I did it together, which was awesome. We had just been married, so it was kind of like an extended honeymoon, just not so glamorous because we lived in kind of a crappy place in Peru. But we had a lot of fun together, and I learned a lot about myself during that time period. And that's actually when I realized I didn't want to become a lawyer. I really found that I enjoyed business, and I was, we've been and worked with a number of different companies and talked to them, and we had a couple of people that came and visited from the States that I talked to that really kind of told me, hey, you should think about doing business. So I threw all my LSAT books away in Peru and decided I was going to do business. So I finished that internship, came back, and immediately started looking for my next internship. And I wanted to do something international, but I wanted it to be business related. And I found it was tough. Like, there aren't a lot of, and you guys have probably seen this, there aren't like a ton of things that are structured where it's like, oh, you can go easily find an internship somewhere. So you really have to kind of pound the pavement, and that's what I did. So I just started showing up at these different internship offices around campus. I was like poring through binders. I don't even know if they use binders anymore. Probably don't use paper, right, anymore. It's probably all electronic. But was going through binders, and I found this company that was a startup in Salt Lake City that had retail stores throughout the Caribbean and Mexico and Alaska and Hawaii, anywhere the cruise ships went. They had these little niche retail stores that they targeted the cruise ship industry. The company was called Del Sol. And man, it was just like, this is awesome. This could be really fun to go do an internship in Mexico or somewhere like that. Went and met with the company and was offered an internship, my wife as well, working in the Cayman Islands. And it was awesome. We went and spent 8 months in the Cayman Islands. We ran a store with 12 or 15 employees and managed inventory for this little $2 or $3 million store. And it was a great first experience. And I had a little kayak on the beach that we'd canoe out. We'd kayak out to this little island with like 3 palm trees. I mean, it was just a dream. Went diving all the time, but also at the same time was developing some real skills in business and was really learning about myself, like what I was good at. And I found that I was really good at certain things, and there were other things I wasn't as good at. But it's these kind of experiences that you have through internships that really kind of shape what you want to do professionally. And so when I finished the internship, Del Sol, their corporate offices in Salt Lake, they offered me a job, and they said, hey, we really want you to come work for us here at the corporate office. We want you to help us open up additional stores around the world. And I was like, yeah, I've got a semester left of school. And they're like, no, but we need you to start now. So I was like, okay. So I started working, and I just extended my last semester over 2 semesters here at BYU, and was traveling back and forth. And ended up having a great experience with these guys. I ended up graduating, like I said, about a year later officially. But I traveled to Mexico and did some really cool things. And one of my assignments was actually I needed to make sure these stores opened on time. And I found there was a lot of inefficiency in opening these stores because in the stores they had all these different fixtures, and all the fixtures were being made by different companies. And anytime one company was late, it would delay the opening of the entire store. So I thought, hey, if I can consolidate all the manufacturing of these fixtures in one factory, maybe we could get better pricing, and we could have more consistency on our store openings. So I started looking around. I found this company in California, flew out, visited them, and they said, yeah, we can make all these fixtures for you. And they said, in fact, this one fixture that you make like 20 or 30 of for each store, we could just actually make that in China because it's the same fixture over and over and over again. And for me, it was like a light flipping on. It was like, you can make stuff in China. Like, wow, this is amazing, This is in 2004. Now, of course, everything's made in China, and even back then, a lot of stuff was. But I didn't realize that actually a person could just go make something in China. And it was around that same time my cousin and I started talking about we should do a business together. I loved the small business I was working for. I had a lot of responsibility for someone that was just out of school with no experience. And so I found I loved startups. The CEO of this company was like a young guy, like 30, 31, was driving a really nice car, had a beautiful home. And it was just like, man, I keep doing all these things to save this guy money and make him like $1 million, and I don't get any of it, So I want to do this myself. So my cousin and I were exploring ideas, and because of this experience, this exposure to this idea of doing something in China, I came up with the idea of manufacturing pool tables in China. Pool tables were basically sold the same way they were 100 years ago in these little mom and pop retail stores. And I thought, hey, if we can go manufacture our own pool tables in China with our own brand and then import them to the United States and sell them directly to the end user, this could really disrupt this market. And so we did that. In our first year, we did $1 million in sales. And we actually, after coming up with this idea, 2 weeks later, we were in China. Like, I took a vacation for my job. We flew to China. We'd never been. we like show up in mainland China in this train station, and we're like looking around for this Chinese guy named Mikey. That his real name's not Mikey, but that's what he calls himself. So we're like looking for like a sign or something to like identify him as like, hey, looking for us. It took like an hour, and finally we see this guy jumping out of a cab, and he's like holding this little sign. We're like, oh yeah, that's the guy. So we jump in the cab. He drives us to this little factory, and there's like, I was shocked, like dogs running around and like dirt floors, and guys like sitting on these stools like hand carving pool tables, and it was like, dang, like I don't know if this is gonna work. Like this is shocking. And we had two main factory visits set up. This one was in the big city. The other one was like in a little small town. So I was scared. It was like my cousin and my business partner was actually like, let's not go to the small town. Like if this is the big city, let's like not go to the small town. So we go and we'd find a hotel, and we're like, okay, we're just gonna stay here for the night. And I was like, okay, I gotta call this other factory and tell them, oh, and by the way, this Mikey kid did not speak any English. Like typing he could, but like speaking, nothing. Did not understand what we were saying. It took like 2 or 3 hours to communicate something that I could communicate to you in like 5 minutes. So it was really frustrating. And so I called this other factory, and I'm like, man, these guys probably don't speak English either. You know, this is a small town. And the guy that answers the phone actually speaks some English, like pretty well. And he's like, oh, no, we're gonna come pick you up right now. And I felt bad. I like couldn't say no. So I go back up to the hotel, and I'm like, dude, you're not gonna believe it, but like these guys are coming like right now to pick us up. And he's like, no, like man, where are we gonna sleep out there? Like it's like some little village. Well, we go out there and wait, and this guy pulls up in a chauffeured Benz, and we're like, yes, like you know, Toyota Jump, and do you guys know the Toyota Jump? Yeah, that's kind of old. But you know, we're like so pumped. We're like, yes, chauffeured Benz, like this is the real deal. We go to the factory, and it's legit. It's like real factory this time, not like little guys on stools. And we started placing orders. We actually sold on eBay first. So we just put a listing up, and we said 10-week lead time, custom-made pool table. And it sold. First one sold, and it was like, yes. You know, so we started selling more and more, and we were using this money to go finance the pool tables that we were making in China. And so we went and placed these orders. We started importing these containers, and then we were just shipping online, you know, so we didn't have a showroom or anything. But we had enough people saying, hey, you know, I see your location is Utah. I'm in Utah. Can I come see one of your tables? And it was like, oh, dang, man, we don't have any tables. Like, they're all in a warehouse. So we convinced my aunt to let us put one in her basement, and we like paint the basement. We put like make it look like a little showroom, and we gave her a cell phone. And we're like, my cousin was still in school. He was a senior. I was working. I had like a real job, right? So we told my aunt, if anyone calls, sell them a pool table. And she started selling pool tables every day. I'm not kidding you, like all the time. So it was like enough validation. We're like, okay, let's open up our own little store. So we opened up this little store, and it just started booming. So a few months later, I flew out to Georgia, moved out there with my family. We opened another store out there, and it just started, you know, snowballing. I mean, we really ended up disrupting this industry. And we found that we loved business, loved entrepreneurship. And I feel lucky that I discovered it at such a young age, because I think a lot of people don't figure out, you know, what they really love until later. And my advice to you guys would be, find something you love. If you don't love what you're doing, go find something else. Your life's too short to be working in something that you don't love and aren't passionate for. So we did this for about 5 years when we decided, we became the largest retailer of pool tables in the US. And we were like, okay, we're ready for a change. So we decided to actually go back to business school. And there was this great program at Wharton, which is, you know, a great business school, one of the best business schools in the world. But they have this really cool program called the Lauder program. And this program, you get a dual degree. You get an MBA from the Wharton School, but you also get an MA in International Studies through this Lauder Institute, which is at the University of Pennsylvania. And you start before the MBAs, a handful of months, and then you have to speak one of 9 languages fluently at an advanced level. You have to take an oral exam to pass. Most people that have served a mission could probably pass the minimum threshold. And so they admit about 60 students per year out of the 850 or 860 students in the MBA program. So pretty competitive to get into, but incredible. Everyone there speaks 2, 3, 4, 7 languages. It's absolutely incredible. Everyone has lived all over the world. Everyone has incredible international experiences. And during this it was a dream. I loved the program. I had high expectations going in because I wanted to go there for like 5 years. And it met every expectation. I ended up traveling to 30 countries during my 2 years in business school. I went to North Korea, I went to Cuba, I went to Brunei, just traveled all over, and just had an incredible time with these classmates, and I learned a ton. But while I was in school, I ended up we sold pooltables.com. My cousin and business partner went to Harvard Business School. And when we were in business school, we decided, let's start another business together. So the cool thing is that most of our entrepreneur friends thought we were crazy to go back to business school, go back to school when we already had a business that was doing really well. But we felt like we could do something even bigger and better. The pool table industry is pretty jokey. I mean, you go to there's an annual trade show called the Billiard Congress of America. And you show up and it's like showing up at a morgue. It's like basically everyone is like dead and dying. I mean, this industry is it's awful. So, I mean, that's one reason we had success is because it's so sleepy. It's like there's no innovation. But we wanted to do something a little more exciting. So this is, we looked at this time of business school to really reflect on this experience that we had. And so we spent the first year in business school just coming up with ideas. And we came up with 60 business ideas that first year. We were very disciplined we decided we were not going to execute on any business idea until we went and spent the whole summer evaluating every idea. So we had other friends that wanted to start businesses, and the problem as an entrepreneur is that you're very impatient. You want to just take something and run with it, right? Your first idea, you're just like, I'm going to do this. So we were really disciplined. We came up with the 60 ideas. We went out to Palo Alto, spent the summer on Stanford campus, and just cut these ideas down, all the way down till we just had 4 ideas. We spent the bulk of the summer on 4 ideas, started testing them, vetting them, experimenting with them in different ways, until we just came back with our favorite idea, which was moving to Brazil and starting a baby business. So I had never been to Brazil. I don't speak Portuguese. I speak Spanish, which is pretty similar. I grew up in Latin America. When I was 4 years old, my family moved there. Moved back to Utah as a teenager, but served my mission in Bolivia. So had a real passion for Latin America. Of course, I did my master's degree with an emphasis in Latin America and Spanish. So really was interested in the region, but really didn't know a lot about Brazil. But I knew it had 200 million people. And the more I looked into it, the more I was blown away by the place this country was at. What just felt like a perfect moment to go start a business. Why the baby business? I'd met a guy who started a business called diapers.com a number of years before that. And this guy was also a Wharton alum. And he started this business after 5 years. He sold to Amazon for $545 million. So just a huge success. And I just really believed that the same business model would work in Brazil. So I started evaluating different countries. And I'm just putting one example here. Here's Mexico. I'd lived in Mexico before, so I knew it was also a big emerging market. You can see 120 million people, a very large country. But you can see all these numbers here. Brazil is just so much bigger. And I think a couple of the key numbers here. Number one, internet penetration, around 50%. This basically means there's a big enough base of people using the internet that we could go launch a business and have traction immediately. It's not like India where it's like 8%, right? Where you're going to take a decade to actually get somewhere. So high percentage of internet penetration, but still low compared to the United States. When we started, it was actually 45. It's gone up to 50. So in the US, it's somewhere around 75, close to 80%. So we had a built-in growth. We knew that if we launched a business in e-commerce there, the growth would help us. It would propel the business regardless of what we were doing, just a natural growth in the market. I'm going to skip that story, even though it's a good one. One fun thing, we launched in October. We launched with the biggest celebrity in Brazil. She's a female, the biggest female celebrity in Brazil. Her name is Angelica. She's been a celebrity since she was a little kid. Her husband is a man named Luciano Huck. He has more Twitter followers than the New York Times, more Facebook. He has 7 million Facebook followers. So the two of them are just this powerhouse celebrity couple. And she's our CMO, our Chief Mommy Officer. And so she's a mom. She has 3 kids, and she's become the face of our company. And we didn't even pay her to become the face of the company. We gave her a small amount of equity, very, very small, a little piece of the business, and said, if you'll be the face of our business, we'll give you this little piece of the business, and we're going to become a $1 billion company. So your little piece is going to become worth a lot of money. And she believed in us. And so, with no money, we got a huge celebrity, and it catapulted us into the stratosphere. I mean, the growth just became insane. This is our first, our office, day one, 6 employees. You can't really see this, right? But you can get the idea. This is one of our 3 offices. We have 180 people now, so 12 months later. This is our first warehouse, and 12 months later, this is our warehouse. We've actually verticalized the space now. We have racking systems to go up to the ceiling. So you can see just the growth over 12 months. One thing that we did is we went and hired some of the most experienced team we could. So we needed someone that handled logistics for e-commerce in Brazil. It's very, very complex, a lot more complex than shipping in the US, where you just have FedEx and UPS. So we went and hired the head of logistics from Walmart. And she came on board and just hired an incredible team. We got Walmart shipping rates, absolutely incredible. So we just went and picked off the leading experts in Brazil in each of these areas and brought them on our team. So that's kind of the story behind what I'm doing now and what I've done. But I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what you guys can do now as students that will help you achieve something outstanding and exceptional in your careers. And I want to touch on internships because, as I mentioned, they really shaped who I was. I would have never come up with this idea of doing something in China had I not worked for this company, and I never would have got that job had I not done an internship for them. Also, the way that we operated pooltables.com was in a lot of ways similar to what I saw operating with Del Sol. So it was that internship experience where I got exposed to how to lead people, how to manage inventory, that really helped us grow our business. And so, a lot of you are probably wondering, what am I going to do when I graduate? How am I going to get a job? If you've done internships, you're likely going to get an offer from one of those companies, or you're at least going to be better prepared to land a job once you graduate, because you've already gone through a recruiting process several times. You've already learned lessons. You're going to be competing with people that haven't done an internship, so you're going to have a leg up on them. As far as international internships, I think everyone here, if you're interested in an international career, you have to land some international internships. And to do that, you have to be a little crazy. You just have to start working your network. Go on LinkedIn and just start searching for people. If you serve your mission in Taiwan and you want to do something in China, just start searching for people that studied at BYU that live in China. Start contacting them. Do anything you can to find an internship in a region of the world where you have some experience. Also, as the last point here, be flexible with the pay. Who here is married? So I was married as a student, which is at BYU is like totally normal, right? Well, that's not normal everywhere else. So I mean, it's in some ways, a disadvantage for a BYU student because you've got 2 of you now, and you've got to do internships. Sometimes you have kids, and I'd say don't let that be an excuse to not do an internship. I was married, and I did both my internships with my wife. And so you can find internships where you can both do something, or even if just one of you does. And maybe your wife or your husband just comes along and finds something else when they're there. I also hear a lot of times the excuse of money. It's like, oh, I don't have any money. Well, I paid for all my BYU education. I didn't have help from my parents. I actually paid for all my mission. I saved all, but as a teenager, I worked and saved for my mission. You have to be resourceful. I mean, don't use that as an excuse to not do an internship. The fact that you don't have money, you can make it work. This is an internship is going to be an investment in your future. So even if it's an unpaid internship, my first internship was unpaid. So you just consider it. This is going to be an investment into my career, into my profession. And so be open to different internships regardless of the pay situation. You can make something work. Also, regarding internships, timing. I know a lot of people just say, I remember my older brother, when we were both in school at the same time at BYU, I was telling him, dude, you got to do an internship, man. And he would just say, I don't have time because I have to graduate. I have to graduate by this deadline. He had put this internal deadline, where he had to graduate by. And then he graduated and he didn't have a job, and he was like, struggling to find a job. And he ended up finding a job. It took like 6 months. And he's great. He has an incredible career. He went to the University of Chicago for his MBA. He's had a great career, but he struggled for the first little bit because he had not done any internships. So, and for some reason he was in this rush to graduate because he was married and he was going to have a kid and stuff. There's no rush to graduate. Of course you need to graduate, but taking one semester off to go get an internship experience, or taking the summer off to do an internship, this is the kind of thing you need to be doing in school. These are also educational experiences. These are things that you're going to be learning. So a couple of things I'd recommend if you're considering a business career or a career in something international. I'd recommend strongly that you do a minor in management at the business school. I saw a few people are doing that here, which is excellent. Don't feel like because you're not doing a management major that you can't go into business. That's absolutely not true. Like Corey said, over half the Kennedy students end up working in business after graduation. And so, but it'll be a huge advantage if you do some kind of minor or classes at the Marriott School where you understand the basics of finance and marketing and accounting. These kind of things can be really helpful. Do the global management certificate. Sounds like a few of you guys are doing that. For me, I really enjoyed that. Took just some additional classes and background. I took a business language class for Spanish, which I really enjoyed. Use all the resources you can find in the school to find these international internships. And then also I'd say one thing I did not take advantage of, and I really regret it, is I wish I would have established a relationship with professors. The professors are always there to help. They're always willing to help, and they have tons of experience. And so I've tried to make up for that. Like today I went and met with a handful of professors that I've heard of or have met in passing over the last couple of years and had a great time talking to them. These guys are willing to help. They have a lot of experience. So I'd recommend finding a few professors that have something in common with you, or maybe have done something that you are really interested in, or specialize in a region or an area of focus that you're interested in, and talk to them. So I think these FAQs, I've kind of touched on all these. So I guess we can jump to some Q&A and kind of go from there. So are you guys, yeah, let's go back there.
When in your first year, were you taking the time to invest in top talent? Because I don't imagine, and maybe it was the case, and so I'd like to figure out how you were able to get people from these top tier organizations to come, leave that and work for you when you didn't have much of a track record, and how far down the line was that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So it is tough, acquiring top talent. You have to do that as an entrepreneur and as a business person or as a leader. I mean, even like think of a bishop. I mean, you've got to get top talent in these key roles, right? So. And if you get B players, they're going to attract more B players. So you have to get A players in these top spots. And so, but it is tough. Yeah, it's tough to convince sometimes these people to jump ship. We had people leave from Google and Nike and Walmart, like big companies that came and joined a little startup, with just a few people. And so the way you have to do it is, number one, any CEO, your first job is to sell the vision of your company. So that's what we did, is we just sold the vision of what we were going to do. We were going to revolutionize e-commerce in Brazil. We're going to have $1 billion company, and you have an opportunity to get on the rocket ship. The rocket ship's going to the moon, and it hasn't left yet, and if you want, you can jump on. And we gave them a little piece of equity where we said, you actually have ownership in this business. You're not just getting paid a salary. And when people have ownership, when something's yours, you care about it, and you work hard.
Right, but there are lots of startups and people who present a great vision, but what beyond that convinced them to go on? And obviously you put a lot of research into it, otherwise you wouldn't have chosen out of your ideas. So
I mean, a few things that, first things first, you have to have something that people are, that's appealing to people, right? So some of the things we did, number one, we got this celebrity, that helped a lot. We also went and raised money. We raised $4.5 million when I was in business school for this business, and just with a PowerPoint and the name baby.com.br. We had nothing else. So, but with that kind of money, and we had a track record at that point, we'd already built an e-commerce business. the story was a little more compelling. But at the same time with pooltables.com, we started that with no experience. We were kids, we knew nothing. We knew nothing about China, we knew nothing about manufacturing, nothing about supply chain, nothing about marketing, nothing about e-commerce. We just, we figured it out. And we actually didn't have the greatest people there, with that business. We had a few great people and a lot of mediocre people. But we learned a lot of lessons from that experience. And so as you guys are coming out of school, build, think big, but start small. That's what you've got to do. But never forget the long-term vision of what you want to accomplish. So let's go back there.
So I'm just curious, how do you get in contact with a celebrity? I mean, how did you make that?
Yeah,
contact?
So actually kind of a fun story here. So as we were raising money, we were pitching to all these VCs, and we had some tough choices to make because we ended up having a lot of VCs interested in investing, more than we actually had room for, because we raised $4.5 million, but we had more than that interested. So we had to pick and choose who we were going to take as investors. And we had a tough decision to make because we had one Brazilian firm that we really liked, a VC called Monax. And it was the only Brazilian VC, and it's like the leading VC in Brazil. And their valuation that they were giving us, the value of the business, was a little bit lower than a Silicon Valley. There was a big Silicon Valley VC that was wanting to invest, one of the biggest VCs in the world. And their valuation was a little higher, which means we could have raised the same amount of money but kept more ownership in the business. And we made the decision to go with the Brazilian VC because we were not Brazilian. We felt we needed that local expertise to get started with the business. And it was through those guys that we actually got in touch with the celebrity. Those guys knew her and her husband, and they recommended we talk to them. At first we weren't that interested. Because I think as an American, you kind of get jaded a little bit by celebrities, right? They're married one day, the next day they're married to someone else, and it's just constant drama. You think of Lindsay Lohan or whatever her name is, always in jail or stealing stuff. So it's we were nervous. It's man, we attach a celebrity to our brand, and then she goes off and gets a DUI and it affects us, or gets divorced. So we were kind of leaning against it. And then this investor told us, hey, if you'll go to, they live in Rio de Janeiro, if you'll go out there and meet with her, I'll fly you in my private jet. And so I was oh, all right, I want to fly in the private jet, so let's do this. So we actually did it more for wanting to do this little trip to Rio in the private jet than we did to meet her. But then when we actually met her and her husband, we were blown away. It was we actually shared a lot of similar values. These were good people. They have a great little family, and we really believed in them. And we saw that they believed in us, and so we ended up striking a deal. But I was actually surprised at how easy it was to get in touch with a celebrity, to negotiate something, and it's amazing how much power they have. We let me see what time it is, just so I don't run over. I have a few minutes. So just one quick story on that. We actually, a few months ago, we launched this new site called Jinda, which they mentioned, which Corey mentioned. And when we launched, we actually had a write-up in the New York Times. We had every major newspaper magazine in Brazil wrote about us. And all on the same day. So just tons of traffic coming to our website from all this media attention. And then we had Luciano, Angelica's husband, tweet and do a Facebook post about this site, Jinda. Well, that day we had 10 times the number of people coming to our website from his post as we did from all the other media. New York Times, massive publications in Brazil, 10 times the traffic just from the celebrities. So celebrities can have a huge impact on a business, especially in the early days. So, okay, yeah, another question. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. So,
I'm in the early stages of doing an e-commerce business overseas, and I was wondering, because I found difficulty in bridging the gap between including more people because I need the help, and then also trying not to expand too fast so that I don't really have anything for people to do, and that's really what I was wondering if you had any experience on.
Yeah, so building a team is one of the hardest things you do as an entrepreneur. And so and it's a balance of, do you have the cash to hire the people? And so, if you've raised money, that's a little bit easier. If you're bootstrapping it, it's a little harder. But I'd always say err on the side of having too few people. It's always better to have too few people. People, when there's not a lot to do, they just stop innovating. It's funny, but people actually perform better when they have too much to do and they're forced to make tough decisions between what they're going to do with their time. So I would say if you're having a tough time choosing, err on the side of having fewer people, but make sure they're very good. Hire fewer people, but make sure they're like A players instead of a lot of people that are cheaper and B players. So, yeah, last question, I think. And I'll stick around afterwards, so if anyone wants to chat after, that's great.
Why do you like being an entrepreneur? Like, what does it do for you besides being a great career and great job? Like, in addition to that, why?
Yeah, great question. So it's not about the money. It's not about the money. And the money, that's a fun aspect of it. If things go well, you can do really well. For me, it's about, it's like being a pirate. Pirates, you become a pirate because it's like, I could potentially make a lot of money if, we find the buried treasure or, whatever. We loot some city or something. But I think most of the time they didn't become rich, right? These pirates. And like after like 6 months on, at sea, they kind of realize, hey, this kind of sucks. There's like 180 dudes on the ship and like no chicks. So, but at the end of the day, the reason they're choosing to do this is because the adventure, right? It's like the excitement of like sailing the seas and what's the next day going to be like, and that's what entrepreneurship's about. It's the adventure of it. It's the excitement of taking something that never existed and creating something. Elder Uchtdorf, the first part of this, I didn't actually have time to do it, but the first slide is actually Elder Uchtdorf's, or President Uchtdorf's talk about creation. And you guys should watch that. It's called Create. It's on YouTube. With this talk, he talks about how God is the ultimate creator, and that creating something is the deepest yearning of the human soul. All of us have a desire to create something that did not exist before, and it provides incredible satisfaction. This is what God does. He creates. And if we can learn to create with our talents, whatever our talents are, we need to figure what they are and create something with it. This helps us become more like God, and that's what this life is all about. So I appreciate you guys giving me the time, and I'll be sticking around, but thanks a lot for coming. I really appreciate it.